Now we'll see if this is doing any better. All right, much better. Okay, slash copy link. Hmm. I hate all this setting up and whatnot. A lot of quiet here at the beginning of this stream. Just it's always a bit of a road bump for a fellow like myself who's not the most tech savvy with any new program, especially something like OBS. Okay, well, set this aside for a minute, so I don't have to worry about that. Recently read through and did a kind of a mid-range review for Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy of sort of cosmic horror, weird fiction novels, and decided after finishing those up, I was going to move right into the next read, and I wanted to go for something that was not a series, that was not an ongoing trilogy or tetralogy or however many installments book series. So I wanted to go back to something a little bit more like short stories. So I grabbed my copy of Isaac Asimov's Gold, which was the final collection of short stories and essays by Asimov discussing speculative fiction, sci-fi, and just discussing some concepts in the realm of science fiction, including an essay on pseudonyms or pen names, which I haven't gotten to yet. I'm still working my way through the short story entries themselves. Started on this a couple of days ago. I've already come across a couple of what I find to be particularly intriguing stories to start the collection off. Cal and Frustrations. Um, Two very intriguing, for me anyway, intriguing short stories, especially Cal, because if you're familiar with the story, or if you have a copy of Gold, if you don't have a copy, I would recommend going to where I didn't get this from Half Price Books. My buddy Jason got this from Half Price Books. Uh, Coworker of mine from when I was working at Mystic Lake. He's the one who is responsible for gifting me so many of these books that I've got down here in the family room. um, and but if you can find a copy of this at Half Price Books or at Thrift Books or um, any other number of bookstores or sites that you can visit online in order to purchase a copy. Um, there is a gentleman here on YouTube by the name of Martin Speaks. There's an underscore between Martin and Speaks. Reach out to him. His wife works at a bookstore that has an online component, that has a website. He can point you in the right direction of where to go, and I'm sure they would also appreciate your patronage. Any smaller independent bookseller would, of course, appreciate your patronage far more than somebody like Amazon. Whenever possible, I would recommend going to smaller independent bookstores, booksellers. Barnes and Noble is no longer, has not for a very long time been what I would consider a small or independent bookstore or bookseller. But if you don't have a small mom and pop shop, go to your nearest Barnes and Noble. Avoid Amazon wherever humanly possible. That would be my advice. If the only way to get the book or get a book is to go through Amazon, well, unfortunately, you're gonna have to bite the bullet and get it that way. If there's no other options available to you that are legitimate options. Now, there are those who would say, why not just go yo ho and sail the high seas online? And while that is certainly an option, I would completely disavow. But people are going to do what they're going to do in order to get a hold of their material to read. Um, Online piracy of books is rampant, happens all the time. It's not a great thing. It is unfortunately something that damages smaller or mid-sized authors far more than it does the big names. And when you disincentivize people to be able to make a living of any kind from their artistic endeavors, then they're going to stop creating artistic material. And then you're going to wind up with a very gray world full of nothing but the same mediocre garbage that we don't enjoy anymore as it is right now. You'll end up with a whole hell of a lot of mediocrity, foolishness, and less than ideal entertainment material available to you. Um, but Cal is a fascinating story for a short because one of the things that most people think of when they think of Isaac Asimov, and I covered this a little bit in my review of Whiff of Death, which was an Asimov novel um, predicated on the scientific principles of chemistry. Um, what a lot of people don't understand about Asimov, who are not familiar with his background, is that Asimov was a scientist himself. He was a scientific philosopher, and he also had an understanding of chemistry, physics, biology, biochemistry, um, chemical engineering. He had an academic background and training and understanding in these areas academically. He was a brilliant instructor and lecturer on the topics of the hard physical sciences. He understood the material extremely well, which is part of the reason why he was able to tell the stories that he did in fiction, in the fictional arena, as superbly as he did, because he had a granite understanding, an extremely solid understanding of the material that he was discussing as a fiction writer. Uh, Nobody in the chat. Okay. Sorry, I got my phone here in order to keep an eye on the chat, and there's nobody in here, so I'm not too worried about it. Again, I don't know exactly what I'm doing yet with OBS or how to keep track of any of this stuff. So it's all kind of new to me. Uh, so I'm kind of just touching my way through it, trying to figure out how I'm going to make this work. In any event, most people nowadays, when they hear the name Asimov, the first thing they immediately go to is the laws of robotics, the three laws of robotics, Asimov's laws of robotics. Um, a robot cannot harm a human being. A robot must do anything and everything it can to avoid damage to itself or harm to itself, and a robot must obey the orders of a human being, excepting in those cases where following the order would break the first or second law of robotics. So, a robot may not harm or kill another human being on the orders of another human being. A robot also cannot destroy itself upon the orders of a human being, because it would be putting its own operations in jeopardy. There is a self preservation mechanic built in. However, as several short stories and novels throughout the ages have shown us, even when these machine people are based or predicated upon the principles of Asimov's laws of robotics, if a robot must sacrifice itself in order to save or preserve the life of a human being, or humans plural, then it will do so, and it will do so in order to follow its primary law, its primary objective, which is that a robot must make sure it does no harm to a human being. Um, with the story Cal, we have a very basic servant robot that has an interest and fascination with his master, his owner's um, vocation. His owner slash master is a writer of mysteries, and the robot Cal is intrigued. There's a sense of curiosity to the robot, and the robot tells its master it wants to become a writer. And the owner is a little amused. He's like, okay. And the reason he even discovers that the robot wants to do this is because the owner has this old ancient typewriter. And the robot, uh, the narrator of the story, is the robot, Cal. And the owner forgets to tell Cal one night to go into his little niche, his charging station or what have you, at night. And the robot reasons, well, Master didn't tell me I couldn't use the typewriter. He didn't tell me I couldn't come out and do something at night. So I'm going to use the typewriter at night when I'm not assigned to do something else. And the owner finds these typed pages of just complete gobbledygook gibberish. And he's like, what happened here? Did you do this? And the robot can't lie. Says, yes, I did this. I wrote this. And the the owner is just like, it's gibberish. There's nothing actually here. There's no here. And why did you do this? And the robot says, I want to be a writer like you. And and so the owner effectively says, okay, tell you what, you can go ahead and you can use this typewriter when you're not assigned to some other duties to try and write a story. And the robot does, and hands its results to the owner, who once again is like, this is gibberish. There's nothing actually here. There's no here. Don't you know how to spell? And And the robot's like, no. So he has to bring in a technician to install and upgrade to the robot a dictionary and a grammar guide to, so that the robot can utilize the written word properly and actually formulate legible sentences and prose. And so the robot gets upgraded, and you can tell. And this is what I find really amusing and fascinating. Because the first part of the story, the way that the narrator speaks to the reader, the way it's written, is almost childlike, and well, childlike and very wooden, um, very much in the way you would expect an extremely simple, primitive machine to talk to people, and that's very much in keeping with the fact that it was a very primitive, very basic, classic robot. It uses stilted language, and just to give a brief example, we'll go through. um, I'll read the first two paragraphs of this story. Cal. I am a robot. My name is Cal. I have a registration number. It is CL-123X, but my master calls me Cal. The X in my registration number means I am a special robot for my master. He asked for me and helped design me. He has a lot of money. He is a writer. I am not a very complicated robot. My master doesn't want a complicated robot. He just wants someone to pick up after him, to run his printer, stack his disks, and like that. He says I don't give him any back talk and just do what I am told. He says that is good. He has people come in to help him, sometimes. They give him back talk. Sometimes they do not do what they are told. He gets very angry and red in the face. This is very mechanical. It's very stilted, which is genius in its way. Asimov had a just an ingenious, masterful grasp of how something artificial would try to convey its experiences when it is very basic. Now, we move along to a later portion of the story. And after his capacities and abilities have been upgraded several times, and we come to this passage. Mr. Northrop called in the technician again. This time I think he wasn't very eager to have me overhear what he was saying, but even from where I was standing, I could hear the conversation. Sometimes human beings forget how sharp the senses of robots can be. After all, I was very upset. I wanted to be a writer. I didn't want Mr. Northrop telling me what I could write and what I couldn't write. Of course, he was a human being, and I had to obey him, but I didn't like it. Now, there's obviously, far and away, a vastly different narrative voice between those two sections within this short story. And the second section comes after there's been an upgrade to the language skills, the grammatical skills, the sentence structure, and the communication capabilities of this robot, Cal. It's just beautifully done, and I don't think there's anything more really to comment on that at this moment. But again, definitely enjoying working my way through this. I'm not sure what I'm going to move on to after this, though, because, and I am enjoying it, but the short stories, hold on a second. Hold on a second. I want to find where this begins. Bear with me, folks. Sorry. All right. The short story section of this compilation only goes up to here. I'm already right here after a couple of days. I've only got maybe, let's see, 70. I've only got 90 more pages, and then I am through the actual fiction material in this tome. The rest of it is essays and extrapolations and talking papers uh, about sci-fi and the field of sci-fi. And while I will appreciate reading those, I'm not going to focus on them. I'll keep them set aside. This book will kind of go over here to the shelf, the window shelf down here in the family room. At which point I'll pick up something else as my next fiction read. I'm not sure what right now. I have plenty of options. I mean, let's take a brief walk through some of those options. We've got some Terry Brooks, Lawrence Watt Evans. We've got some Andre Norton, Mercedes Lackey that I haven't read. R.A. Salvatore, I'm not sure I'm going to read those books. I have them for the moment just because I have them out while I was organizing these books after bringing them up out of the bags that Jason gave them to me in. I actually may end up going into and reading these Spelljammer books. This series, it is the Cloakmaster cycle. And this would be particularly interesting right now to get into these books because Spelljammer is originally a TSR Dungeons and Dragons property series of works. And if you're familiar at all with the recent kerfuffle going on in tabletop role-playing realm or arena, having access to these old books in their physical format is not great for Wizards of the Coast because I can enjoy these books, enjoy these stories without having to pay Wizards of the Coast or Hasbro any money because I already have the books and they can't change that. They can go fuck themselves. As a quick way to make sure that this stream doesn't get anywhere. Well, that and the fact that I'm talking about books. And who the hell is this guy, right? Come on now. But anyhow, that's about all for now. I can't think of any other way to continue on with this stream, as it were, particularly since there's nobody here to chit chat. But this was just primarily a test to see if I can make this whole thing work. And my laptop feels like it's going to fucking start itself on fire here pretty soon. I don't have great equipment. I don't have high-end equipment. For the most part, I don't do streaming. I record some videos here and there, and that's about it. Perhaps if nothing else, this has been a demonstration to me that I should stick to that. We shall see. Anyhow, ladies and gentlemen, cheers.